Next season of Marvel Rivals is officially the season of love, and with that they are bringing Rogue and Gambit, which is everybody's favorite Marvel couple. Welcome back to Geek, where we talk about all things video games and Marvel and DC and everything in between. We try to have a little bit of everything for everybody. I'm Stella, and today we're going to be talking about Rogue, or Anna Marie, one of the main members of the X-Men and one of my personal favorite Marvel characters. Introduced in the Avengers Annual number 10 in August of 1981, Anna Marie as a kid was raised by her aunt after her mother's disappearance. Her aunt was super strict as a guardian, and that strained the relationship between her and her aunt, and her father being distant made Anna Marie a rebellious child. So much so that she ended up running away as a kid. The locals from where she grew up actually gave her the name Rogue because she was a runaway kid. And while she was on her own, she met Mystique, another mutant and shapeshifter, who Rogue ended up trusting almost immediately because she was also an outcast. Destiny, Mystique's partner, was the one that suggested that Rogue be taken in by them, and Rogue enjoyed a lot of the time spent with her new mothers. But Destiny, who has the powers to let her see the future, knew that Rogue was a mutant even though her powers hadn't presented themselves. And they planned to use her in the future when she did develop these powers. These powers actually manifested around the time where Rogue got close to a boy named Cody Robbins, who was her first kiss. That kiss being one that absorbed his life energy and left him in a coma, which he would never wake up from. This traumatized and broke Rogue to the point that she embraced Mystique's mission, though she wasn't able to control her powers. This is when she started covering her skin completely so she wouldn't accidentally touch someone and end up taking their life force. This is also when she joined the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, which was run by her mother Mystique. Rogue's powers drain the life energy from somebody, but it also lets them share a mind with those people, seeing memories and absorbing psyche, and this usually only temporarily leaves her with the memories, powers, and physical traits or talents of whoever she touches. There are a few heroes she's picked up permanent powers from along the way, one being Wonder Man and the other being Miss Marvel. It's unknown why she actually permanently absorbed Miss Marvel's powers, but it left her with Miss Marvel's super strength, flight, and seventh sense. And she also has telepathic immunity. Destiny actually had a vision that Carol Danvers would ruin her daughter's life, and in order to protect her, Mystique had the Brotherhood go after Miss Marvel. They didn't succeed, however, and got arrested. But knowing that her mother was upset, Rogue decided to deal with the enemy herself, without telling anybody. One thing to know about Rogue is she is super hot-headed. She just always is. She feels a lot of emotions and she's not really good at regulating them. So she headed to San Francisco and attacked Miss Marvel, fighting on the Golden Gate Bridge, and this is where she absorbed those powers from her. And Rogue disposed of what she believed was Miss Marvel's body, though she was saved by Spider-Man. So when she is ordered to defeat the Avengers, she failed multiple times to beat them, but she managed to escape with Mystique. She suffered a lot with having Carol's soul in her body and ran away from home again, turning to Professor Xavier for help, and she was welcomed to his school for gifted youngsters. After all, he didn't want to deny any mutant in need, but the X-Men felt differently, considering she was one of their enemies up until that point. It took time, but she slowly earned the trust of the X-Men and even got Mystique to accept her place on the team because she needed to balance herself mentally. And then we get something that I think is going to be one of the main Marvel skins coming out because it makes sense because it is one of Rogue's most popular looks, Savage Land. After being deemed dead on Battleworld, Rogue returned and found herself on Savage Land, where she had to fend for herself for days on end in the wilderness. She was attacked by Miss Marvel, though it was interrupted by Magneto, who took her in and led the resistance against a sorceress named Zaladani. Magneto and Rogue grew closer as this time passed until she parted ways with him when he slayed Zaladani, even though Rogue tried to convince him to spare her. She then went to Mur Island where she was brainwashed, and here is where she met Gambit, though they don't always agree that that is their first meeting. And she made out with him almost like immediately upon meeting him, even though she doesn't usually have a control of her powers. But like I had said, this is usually a point of tension between Gambit and Rogue because I don't know what is actually their first official meeting because Rogue does not remember this, but Gambit does. So when they speak again, it's when Rogue is trying to find Mystique, and they both find out that Destiny had been killed on the island. The X-Men X-Men do come back together, and Rogue starts to find an appreciation for Gambit and actually begins to trust him during this time. Which is rare because of her powers. She doesn't really trust people very often. Obviously, she couldn't touch him, but he was always flirtatious with him, and they would go on dates together, slowly falling for him in the process. Budding romance wasn't able to stand up to when Rogue found out about Gambit's past, and when Gambit's wife, Belladonna, confronted him, they found out he was part of an arranged marriage and part of the Thieves Guild. Gambit was forced to return to New Orleans, and the X-Men went with him, putting the end to Brood and killing Belladonna in the process. Rogue ended up distancing herself from Gambit after this, rejecting him entirely, but he continued to try to keep their relationship alive, even taking care of her when she was injured, which brought them closer. They did eventually start dating officially, despite Rogue not being able to touch him at all, and they were happy until Magneto returned and hurt Gambit, which obviously led Rogue into a frenzy. Gambit returns to New Orleans at one point and finds out that Belladonna was still alive, and Rogue is super tempted to touch her to find out about Gambit through her memories, which does end up happening when Belladonna moves and Rogue gets the knowledge she was curious about anyway. But Belladonna is revived, memoryless, and Gambit chooses Rogue over her, even if Rogue is reeling from what she learned about him. They end up having a rocky relationship the more that Rogue finds out about his past and secrets. And while he does offer to let her touch him again to reveal those secrets to her, she refuses and ends their relationship. Though in current comics they are married nowadays, so it's really not that big of a deal. Another important relationship in her life is her brother Kurt Wagner, who is Mystique and Destiny's biological son. While Mystique has many children, Nightcrawler is also a member of the X-Men team and someone she didn't know she was related to for years. Which makes sense since Kurt was raised in a traveling circus and they didn't grow up together. Circling back to that wedding though, Gambit and Rogue weren't together when Kitty Pryde paired them to go on a secret mission together that was an elaborate scheme and a threat to mutants. It just also happened to be under the guise of couples therapy, so Kitty Pryde sent Gambit and Rogue to the island, and they end up actually dating by the time that it's over because it's a fake dating mission and it ends up with them dating and it's beautiful. So when Kitty and Colossus were getting married, Kitty got cold feet and backed out of the ceremony. Gambit actually proposes to Rogue at the wedding since all of their friends were there anyway, the money had been spent. Why waste a good wedding, and why wouldn't Gambit just steal somebody else's wedding, honestly? So they get married on the spot. There's something kind of fun about the Grandmaster introducing the next season of Marvel Rivals and hinting that he had Rogue and Gambit kind of just on the back burner, because Rogue has been in one of his games before and fought alongside his daughter, Vonnie Gast, or the Voyager, who was tricked into believing that she was a founding member of the Avengers, and so they all were kind of brainwashed into believing so, and throughout the game, Voyager ends up turning against her dad, and she kind of becomes an honorary Avenger just by doing the right thing. But it kind of hints at maybe getting this whole relationship, and if we get Voyager in Marvel Rivals soon, she is one of my lesser known, underappreciated favorite characters. I think it would be very fun, but I also just love the Grandmaster, so that's just me. I do also think that outfit from that comic run would be a very cute skin because she's kind of like zombie-ish. She has a lot of veins and like dull skin going on. And then she has her like nice little green suit. So I think it would be really fun to have as a skin. I hope you enjoyed this and learned a little bit about Rogue. I love her very much. This is a very like quick and dirty version of just knowing a little bit about her. So you can play her when she comes out in Marvel Rivals. As always, be sure to leave a like and comment and subscribe and let us know what you thought in the comments down below. And I will see you guys next time. Stay geeky. Bye-bye.